Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I wanted to do a quick video today to be able to show you what I picked up in the mail recently and explain why I picked up these specific items. A few of which you've already seen on some digital shorts, but I wanted to be able to kind of go a little bit more into depth to these as I kind of have an opportunity to do a video to review them, as well as a few cards you've not seen yet, as well as an item I picked up at a recent card show on this past Sunday. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and get started. The first short I put out earlier in the week was this beautiful 1953 Bowman color, just in a PSA 2, oddly enough, of Mini Minoso. So there is like a small crease in here, as you see sometimes on these Bowman color cards. The crease is noticeable if you spend a lot of time looking at it very closely, but it presents really well on the front where it doesn't actually like kind of go through the card, like many of them can, where you actually see like a crack in the image because the crease is so bad. If you were to turn it over, you have a better chance of maybe seeing it, but because the card is so aged, it's a little hard to see. The crack begins between the E and the S. So this has ended up being a card that was like perfect for my collection, because I was trying to be able to find a card that was somewhat affordable to be able to continue to complete the 1953 Bowman color set. And this card has gotten kind of expensive over the time that since he's gotten into the Hall of Fame. This has been a card that if you can't pick up his 53 Bowman or 53 Topps, that a lot of people tend to gravitate towards. And it's just kind of a popular image of him holding the bat there, looking off into the distance in front of the photographer as they took this picture. It's one of the few color images of him this early in his career, so it's pretty cool just kind of seeing it, because I think I saw most of him when he was like much older. When you look at the late 50 cards, and you could really see his time had really taken a toll on him at that point. You could see a lot of the wrinkles on his face. So a PSA 2 is like perfect for me. When I purchased this card, the seller let me know that this was part of his father-in-law's collection that they were working on and selling. And so it was pretty cool to kind of see this card potentially go into another collection that is going to keep it probably equally as long and have an opportunity to be able to be part of a complete set once again. So related to the White Sox, we actually have another Go-Go White Sox to be able to share with you, but this time it was with him while he was still with the Cleveland Indians. It's kind of interesting in the background here. You can actually see this is his rookie card where he's still wearing the Washington Senators jersey, a team which some people forget that he even pitched for, because we don't have a lot of cards to represent that. In fact, even his 49 card talks about him being on the Indians, even though it's an image clearly when he's in a Washington uniform. But here he is in a Cleveland Indian uniform. I think it's one of the more popular cards of his. Not just because it's in the Bowman color set, which obviously brings a lot of interest to the set, and a lot of collectors adore the cards from this set, but the image itself is pretty interesting. He's kind of sitting at the top of a dugout, probably in spring training. So you can see there's like no large stands behind him, and you can see in the distance there's a little bit of a mountain, which kind of makes me think he's probably out in Arizona or someplace like that for spring training. Maybe even Arkansas at this point. I'm not sure when they moved to their site to where it currently is. But this image is pretty cool. I know early Wynn was a 300-game winner, and sometimes is kind of overlooked as one of the good pitchers of the 1950s. He won, obviously, his only Cy Young Award near the end of his career with the Chicago White Sox in 1959. And I believe he was part of the deal that actually brought him over to the White Sox, involved Minnie Minoso going over to Cleveland. So these guys are forever going to kind of be linked. You know, Minnie eventually came over to the team later on in 1959 at the very end of the season, so they did get a chance to play together for a few seasons before Minnie went off to the Cardinals briefly before he came back and finished his career with the White Sox. But by that point, early Wynn had retired. So those are the two Bowman colors I picked up from my set. Very happy to have both of them in my collection at this point. I'll put those off to the side. So let me put another stand up here. So these are actually going to be cards from the 1930s. Starting with the 1934 Lou Fonseca. So it'll be fun putting a video together about him and his history, more so after his playing days, because he actually had a very pivotal role in helping us be able to still enjoy videos and film of the players from the 1940s and the 1950s, even early on to the 1960s, as he became involved with Major League Baseball's film production after his playing career had ended. He also was a former MVP with Cleveland. By this point, he was a player manager with the White Sox, but didn't spend a lot of time actually playing. He was doing more managing by this point due to a series of injuries that he experienced over the course of his career. This is actually during the 1934 season, which is his final season actually as the player manager for the White Sox at that point. and then he was moved on there shortly thereafter. Here we have Blondie Ryan. I believe this is with the Pittsburgh Pirates, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that is nope, it's the Philadelphia Nationals team. So it's the Philadelphia Phillies national uniform. What this card kind of reminds me of a little bit is of the image of the 1950 Bowman Phil Rizzuto. Obviously, this card came out prior to it, so it's not influenced by it whatsoever, but kind of trying to show an action image. We do see those quite a bit during the set itself, which I think is kind of fun seeing those. You can see someone's trying to back him up there in the outfield, and he's trying to field the ball there. I believe he was a third baseman, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that's what position he played. But I'll look it up. Obviously, I'll learn more about him as I actually get a chance to do a profile on Blondie Ryan. The final card was another Diamond Stars. It was all in the same purchase. Is the JoJo White. He was an outfielder for the Detroit Tigers and was part of their World Series teams during the 1930s. So there we go. 3 more Diamond Stars for the sets, and they are right in the grade range that I really want for my commons, which are going to be between like 3s and 5s. And I was very happy being able to pick up these 3 cards from in the same purchase. And I think they look fantastic. I'm very happy with those. And those I had a chance to show off just earlier when I did a recording with RJ, when we were meeting with Mike Petty, when he reviewed his history of collecting and more or less authenticating, if you will, autographs from Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio, etc. And then my final card I picked up was from the card show that I attended today. They're actually on Sunday. I'm recording this on Sunday, so you might see this on Monday. But I went to the show earlier this morning. It's the same one that I go to every so often. It's held monthly, locally where I live. It's in like the Schaumburg area of Chicago, which is about 45 minutes outside of Chicago on the northwest side, in a northwest suburb of Chicago. There was a few vintage dealers in there, as there always is, and then the remainder of the dealers were actually trying to sell modern cards. I noticed that there was a lot less people set up, and I came there a little later than I normally do, so either people were running late or they just weren't coming. And it was in a space that I'd gone to previously, and it was very crammed, and I didn't feel as crammed in this one, so it looked like there was a lot less foot traffic as well as a lot less tables set up. It is held every month, and we just had a big card show here in March, so that may have influenced the foot traffic at the show. I'm not sure, but it was kind of noticeable, just that it wasn't as busy as it was previously. So when I actually went around and I looked at, I was able to do some window shopping, and I was looking between one of 2 cards. I just had a certain amount of cash on me. Both of them were going to probably cost that amount, so I wouldn't be able to pick up both cards. One of which is a player I do collect, and I ended up passing on a Roy Campanella card from the 56 set to be able to pick up a T206 card of Fielder Jones. So this is significant to me in a couple different ways. So Fielder Jones was the player manager of the 1906 White Sox, a team that actually beat the Chicago Cubs in the World Series and was the first Chicago team to win a World Series in 1906. They were known as the Hitless Wonders, as the team dominated by pitching, and even during the 1906 season, Fielder Jones actually had his worst season at the plate. As I mentioned, he was a player manager with the White Sox at that point and was through the 1908 season. He went on to play for the Cleveland. He went on to St. Louis and played for a little bit while longer, and then was in the Federal League where he ended up ending his career with their St. Louis team, and then came back with the Browns as a manager before he kind of ended his time in baseball shortly thereafter, about the 1917-18 season. He played Brooklyn previously before coming over to the White Sox. His best average as a player were early parts of his career in Brooklyn, but he was still a pretty proficient fielder for them when he came over, by the time he came over to the White Sox. And as I mentioned, he was the player manager for them as they went on to win the World Series, one of only 3 in the team's history, and the first. So, and the other part that's significant to me is it's not a primary project. At some point, it might become a primary project to complete other things. But I would really like to be able to get the Chicago White Sox players in the T206 sets. It seems within reason. There are 3 Hall of Fame cards in there, so those are going to cost a little bit more. But the rest of the players are common players, or minor stars from that era. And they have portraits, and then they also have these more action-ish poses This is one of him obviously standing at this point, but look at that beautiful background. It kind of reminds me of the most beautiful sunrises and sunsets, as you can kind of see, where you see that marriage of yellows and reds as the sun kind of either about to go down beyond the horizon or just coming up from the horizon. And I think the artist did a wonderful job designing this card, and the Chicago on his uniform couldn't be more clear. So you could really get a feel of what the uniforms looked like during this era. And I'm just really thrilled to be able to pick it up in my collection. You might wonder what actually the mark is. It's not on the front. It's very hard to see, but it's right here. It looks like someone put a little stamp on the back there. It doesn't obviously deter at all from the luster of the front of the card, but actually it would allow the card to be able to be obtained at a much lower price than a PSA 4 would have been able to be bought because of that. So that is it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the mail day. I'll be back soon, and I hope you guys have a wonderful start to your week.